I'm back at it again with more BANLIST content, this time trying to figure out the hand traps that are actually worth playing this format. So things definitely changed since Gamma got banned, and a bunch of decks got worse, and also some other got better over time. This basically means that you have to change your hand trap lineup, as your previous one won't really work this format. With that being said, let's get right into it, as soon as of course you guys smash the like and subscribe button. Alright, so in the number 10 position, I have 4 hand traps that are tied. These hand traps used to be pretty good last format, but there is now less incentive to play them. I'm talking about Ghost Ogre, Effect Veiler, Ghost Mourner, as well as Nibiru. Ogre is very niche in the current metagame, as it's not really good against Labyrinth or Despia, and even when it resolves, it's not even that good. And then Veiler is pretty weak against Despia and Purely, because they all have quick play spell cards that can special summon monsters on the draw phase. Ghost Mourner is overall pretty underwhelming, because it's obviously really bad against Labyrinth, as they can summon a bunch of monsters on your own turn, and in the TCG, you have to use Mourner as a Chainlink 1, so that they can use their effects on Chainlink 2. And it does absolutely less than nothing against normal summon monsters like a Luber, and if they have branded Lost, Ghost Mourner is going to be doing fuck all. And then Nibiru is also really bad because it used to be pretty decent against Kashtira since they were pretty greedy and they were going for the full combo with Diablosis, but nowadays people are just going at Rise Art Pass and 4 summons. And even against the other decks like Despia and Labyrinth and whatever else I can think of, Nibiru is usually really bad. Still really good against Super Heavy Samurai if for some reason people choose to keep playing that deck. Alright, number 9, I have a really nice and niche hand trap that is really cool when it resolves, but at the same time you can't really main deck it. And the card is Retelling C. When it works, it works. So against Despia, you're going to be chaining it to their branded fusion or branded in red, and then everything goes to the banished instead of going to the graveyard. The difference is that you can play Retelling C in decks that wouldn't want to play Shifter, and you can actually use Retelling C as a material for a rank 4 Xyz play. And this card is also really good against Purely, because whenever they use a Purely quickly spell, you chain Retelling C, and then if they want to special summon a monster, then they go neg like crazy because they have to banish their Purely quick play spell, banish their discard. So if they have like a Shadal or, a Dark World monster, they won't be plussing. And then after that, they're going to have pretty much no cards in their graveyard so that their plump won't be able to really get more materials, and making a Purely Noir is going to be a nightmare for them. Again, not really a card worth main decking, but definitely really good in the side deck. Next up is yet again another hand trap that isn't really worth main decking because it is also very niche, and that would be Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. I will be making a full video on all the targets for this card, as well as all the best decks that can abuse this card. If you can use Reaper for more than just, it being a hand trap that hurts your opponent, and actually use it as, I don't know, like a reveal for a Dark Attribute monster, or a discard cost for, I don't know, your Labyrinth monsters, or something else, maybe it could be worth main decking. But yeah, stay tuned for the full video. Anyways, number 7 is Retaliating C's brother, Contact C. So this card is completely broken against Despia, and it forces them to, out it by using Guardian Chimera, which is really bad. And even against Kashtira, this card is really good because it forces them to link it off into a Donner, and then revive back a Kashtira with Birth, and then go into Theosis, special summon a monster, and then Rise Art, and then a Rise Art. It's the kind of hand trap that forces your opponent to diverge from his original line of play. And it's also really good against Mathmech because their only out to it would be to go into a Transcode or Access Code Talker using it as material, because all the other Link monsters they play are Cybers only. So depending on their hand, you might easily cut them off from access from Circular, and that's exactly what you want. And as a little bonus, Retaliating C can actually search Contact C when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, and that's always appreciated. Alright, number 6 is Julian Lockbird, a card that is still good to this day, but at the same time a little worse because less players are playing Super Heavy Samurai now. Drawing Droll against Labyrinth, Despia, or even Purely can be really frustrating because they can easily play around it or even through it. And even against Kashtira, Droll can be really awkward because unless they go like Terraforming into Field Spell or Field Spell into Unicorn, Droll usually doesn't do enough. Still a good hand trap though, and one of the very few hand traps that is still worth playing in the main deck to this day. Number 5 is a classic that will never suck, and that has to be Imperm. It's very safe and easy to play, and it doesn't obviously turn on triple Tactic Talons, doesn't lose out to Call by the Grave, and obviously you can draw it for turn and still have value off of it. And unlike the other hand traps, it also has some other utility if you set it, because you can negate spells and traps, and that can really save you. This is one of the only hand traps I will always recommend you, regardless of the format we're in or the deck that you're playing. Number 4 is a series of hand traps that can be main decked, but not by everyone. I'm talking about the Bestial Monsters, some of the highest impact hand traps in the entire game. They obviously primarily act as a DD Crow for light and dark monsters, but they still generate you a really big body on the board. And if you have a level 4 monster on top of a Bestial Monster, you can easily synchro summon Chaos Angel without even requiring a tuner. Now, Magnamut is the best Bestial Monster out there, but Druid Worm is still really good. And if you're playing Dragon Link or Despia, Saronir is even better because you can actually use its graveyard effect effect when it's sent to the grave in order to Foolish for Lubellion or Branded Retribution. Honestly, all 4 Bestials are really good, but I don't really recommend playing over 6 or maybe 9 Bestial Monsters if you're at least playing Dragon Link. Alright, so number 3 is Dimension Shifter, and I think everyone can agree with me on the fact that it's really good and really frustrating to play against. It is Kashtira's and Flunderee's best weapon whenever they both go second. And Shifter can also be played by Vanquished Soul because they can use it after they recycle back their Ryzen with the Link 1 monster. But I definitely wouldn't bother playing this card in Super Heavy Samurai because for some reason some people in the OCG are doing that. Freaking madman, I'm telling you. But yeah, it's a nutty card, just not generic enough, but really frustrating to play against and completely overpowered if your deck loses to it, so that's why it's in number 3. Alright, so number 2 is actually a really interesting one because it's a hand trap that used to not even be in my top 10, and now I feel like it has to be here. The card in question is Ghostbel, and I do believe it has a good matchup against pretty much every deck out there. It negates some of the best Despia plays out there, so it negates the Albion Sanctifier Dragon, as well as Lubellion if they cannot chain block or use Branded Lost, and even Branded in red. Against Labyrinth, it stops Big Welcome Labyrinth, which is pretty much their best Welcome Labyrinth trap card. And you know, unlike Valor, Ogre, and Imperm or Julian Lockbird, this card is really good against trap decks in general because some of them actually always special summon monsters from the grave, such as Scarlet Sanguine and Eldritch. And against Runic Stun or Runic Sprite, this card is still really good against the Fountain because it stops them from drawing 3 cards. It can also be used defensively to protect yourself from getting hit by Cobb by the Grave or Bestial Monsters. And it can be decent against Purely if you destroy their Xyz monster and they use the continuous spell card to try to recycle back 3 quick play spells from grave to hand. And sometimes they crash their Xyz monster into your monster so that you can still use Ghostbel because it is usable on the damage step. And of course, Ghostbel is game against Mathmeg because it stops Super Factorial, and that is the best play they can do. This card went from being a side deck only card to being a main deck worthy card because Kashtira is now seeing less play, and that's really nice. And last but obviously not least has to be Ash. This card usually isn't that good because it's always generic, but it's never really high impact, but at the same time things have changed now. As I can see an increase in Labyrinth and Despia players, this card will keep getting better and better and better. Ash against Despia is even nastier than Shifter against Tier Elements because they really rely on Branded Fusion to play. That card is not only a double Foolish, but also a special summon from the extra deck, so you really have to stop that. Nothing else in the Despia deck is worth ashing, so it's really not like you can say that they have any way to bait you. As for Labyrinth, you just ash whenever you can, and it's usually good enough. Either they're a Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Prosperity, Ariana, Welcome, or Big Welcome Labyrinth, it doesn't really matter too much. Purely doesn't lose too hard to Ash, but at the same time, if you Ash their continuous spell card, they might just pass turn with no plays because they really need specific combo pieces if they want to go for Expurely Noir. And Ash is still generically good against pretty much any other deck I can think of. This card ranges from average to insane depending on which deck you're facing. The good news is that this card never sucks, unlike Nibiru, which either sucks or is broken, and that's really what you need to know if you want to build a deck this format. Anyways, that's all I had to say for this video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think are the best hand traps this format, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.